Bob, your staff set? You ready? Your staff ready? I'd like to call to order the public meeting for the Arizona State Parks Board. This is Thursday, January 9th. We are a little bit late, 10:08 a.m. I'd like to call to order and ask us all to stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If we could have roll call to make sure we have a quorum.
Dale Larson,
Here.
John Sefton,
Present.
Lisa Atkins, Debbie Johnson,
Present.
Orm Lewis Jr., Sean Orm,
Present.
Terry Palmberg.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And as our usual opening, I'd like to be able to just cite the mission statement of our board. As board members, we are gathered today to be stewards, extremely important word, and voice of the Arizona State Parks and its mission statement to manage, conserve Arizona's natural, cultural, and recreation resources for the benefit of the people, both in our parks and through our partners. And before we get into the formal agenda, just like to wish everybody Happy New Year. Happy, healthy, prosperous New Year. Particularly, Bob, to the professional staff and to all the volunteers that support Arizona State Parks and Trails. Just wishing you the best for 2020. So, and thank you for your courtesy in making this meeting available. So, first item on the agenda is the consideration to approve the minutes from the November 14th board meeting. Are there any comments, or is there a motion?
Move to approve.
There's a motion, and it's been seconded. Motion for minutes, Nancy, I can just do as proclaim. I don't need to do a roll call for that, right?
Roll call's always an option, but as long as
Yeah,
the
we're-
person could tell whatever, or the person recording the minutes understands like what the phone vote is and what in-person votes are, it's really, there's like many ways to do it, as long as you just get everyone's vote in.
All right, thank you. It's been moved and seconded that the minutes be approved. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Item D2 is the update and discussion on our favorite topic of the Boyce Thompson Arboretum. And Tim, I guess you're on board to lead this conversation.
Yeah.
Great. Good morning and Happy New Year to everybody.
Thank you.
Chairman,
Thank you.
board members, thank you for the opportunity again to present on Boyce Thompson. And here's the reason why. This one for me is both a professional and personal interest. When I got to Arizona in 2003, this was like literally the first place I hiked in Arizona. Learned a valuable lesson: don't go wander out in the desert in September. It's still very hot for us Marylanders. But you know, BTA for my family is something that my father personally loves. He comes out here almost every time. He's got pictures up in the house in Maryland. So when I got to the parks in April, I thought, wow, what a wonderful job. It gets better and better. Boyce Thompson's also a state park. Then comes June. Job is still awesome. Still excited to be here. I got asked to step into a conversation about some contracting due to the tripartite agreement, which was the agreement that originally made Boyce Thompson a state park, or at least at the time that's what we believed. We appreciated Nancy actually kind of flagging a much bigger issue. So there was a lot of emotion, I think, at that time around the contract, what form the contract should take. Is it an MOU, ISA? There was a bunch of alphabet soup in terms of what contractual mechanism we would use to stand back up an agreement between state parks and BTA. The reality, and again, I really appreciate the zoom out that Nancy did, is, and we talked a little bit, I believe, in the September board meeting, that there is a statute that guides the board's ability to create a state park. I believe we have a flow chart up here. The simplistic answer is that the board doesn't have authorization to create a park over 160 acres. That requires a legislative action. I know, again, God bless Nancy for having done the blessed work of going through session law, legislative session law, which is not a fun activity. We researched with historians here. The unfortunate fact that we found in June is there was just simply no legislative action to create the park. I think we have another slide. The reason that's important, what you'll see up there is that Boyce Thompson is about 400 acres, a little bit over 400 acres. We have the Picket Post House that is a state asset next door. It's about 30 acres. But when we started having these discussions in June about what form the contract would take, it was very obvious that it couldn't take any kind of form because it wouldn't matter whether we leased the property or use some other contractual mechanism. We simply didn't have the authority to step into that contract. Again, I think there was a lot of emotions at that time. I simply wasn't here, so I don't know what the backstory was. But I wanted to kind of start to move us toward where we are today. And that is, while we may not be able to engage in a bipartite agreement or a cooperative managed agreement in terms of leasing the property, I think it's important, and I know I've talked with Lynn Namath, the executive director at BTA, it does still mean we can partner cooperatively, meaningfully. We may not be able to do it through the same mechanisms we did in the past, but I know we have a wonderful cactus garden that's on Picket Post property that I believe is the property of BTA. We're watering that with BTA resources, so there's some shared assets there that we just want to make sure are kept in high order. But with that being said, it doesn't look like we can enter back into the same contractual mechanisms that we did prior to this. So I know BTA had submitted a letter that I believe is in everybody's packet.
Yes.
I think it's the unfortunate recognition that without a legislative act, BTA formally would not actually be a state park. But again, I think it's important to emphasize that that doesn't mean that we can't partner, collaborate meaningfully with BTA. It simply means the same mechanism we used in the past just wouldn't be legal going forward. So I don't know, Lynn, you want to come up and speak to the letter because I think it is BTA's letter. So if the chairman's okay, I'll turn it over.
Absolutely, no, I think that's great. And Lynn, first of all, welcome, but if you could reintroduce yourself and then.
Sure. Yes, my name is Lynn Namath, and I'm the relatively new executive director of Boyce Thompson Arboretum. I started July 1, 2020, so
2019.
2019, right, sorry. 2019, and it feels like 2020. And imagine my surprise when I found out that the Boyce Thompson Arboretum had not actually ever officially been a state park according to statute. And that was also a big surprise to our board of directors as well. So I am delighted that we can be working together, particularly on the management of Picket Post House going forward. I'm really hoping that that can happen. We're right there. We do have assets on that property in terms of plants. And so it's a new era under new management here, under new management at BTA. And it's unfortunate that the dissolution of the tripartite agreement meant that we weren't actually a state park. And I want to assure you all that it's not something that we intended to do as part of the dissolution of the tripartite agreement.
Right.
It was an unfortunate consequence, and we had many, many discussions about the ramifications of doing that sort of after the fact because people really didn't know. But we had our historian also research, and Tim and the AG's office are right. There was never any kind of legislative action taken regarding the status. And so I'm hoping that we can work together in the future, and we look forward to the opportunity to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
While you're up there, let me just open for comments from any of the board, and to no surprise at all, Board Member Orman, then to Sean.
I completely agree with your assessment. I was on the board for a dozen years and became very conscious of the dynamics and the families involved and so forth. Given the fact that Parks has provided substantive consideration over the years. I would be more hopeful that your position is, well, we can't, as opposed to we will come about it, because having worked with parks across the United States, I think anything can be done if we wanted to do it. And now, with your delightful personality and your sophistication, no, I think maybe we can pull things together, because we have an enormous amount of leverage which we need to hold on to, and that is the acreage and the improvements in the water to the east. And with that, those in the Boyce-Thompson covenant of responsibility, I think we have a great opportunity to get together, but I don't want to give up assets sitting here in the parks unless there's a quid pro quo that's in the best interest of Arizona and the visiting community.
Thank you. Board Member Sean?
Thank you. Hi, Lynn.
Hi.
I haven't even spoken to Mr. Lewis over here about this, but I find myself thinking, and I was sad when I read this letter, and apologize to you if in some way Parks dropped the ball with regard to your statement about your attempt to communicate with us several times, if there's something we didn't do that we should have. So I'm not sure, I could be misinterpreting.
I think it had to do with some changeover in personnel
No doubt.
that happened here.
Right. So I apologize that
Well, thank you.
this state treasurer became complicated because of that. But I would like to ask our board to ask ourselves, what is it that we believe is in the best interests of the citizens of this state? Because if I look at our mission statement, I would say it is unequivocally to do whatever we can, if needed, through the legislature. What is the process we must go through to reinstate this relationship? Because I believe it is in fact the mission of this board and this agency to protect this resource and to be a partner with you. So that's where I'm coming from as a board member. I don't want to lose this relationship at all. And I think it's incumbent upon us to do what's necessary to clean up the mistakes of the past so that we can move forward in a healthy and positive way that benefits both.
Good, thank you. Other comments from board members? Tim, response as far as the notion of a new future, quote unquote, without having that agreement in hand, at least at this point, not having it in hand.
Chairman, board members, I appreciate what Board Member Orm said, because like I said, for me, this is a personal treasure, if not a professional treasure. I think we hit it on the head. It would require a legislative act, but that can be done.
Good.
So when we say the current pathway, unfortunately, is not the legal pathway, I want to emphasize that because the state assets being used on a non-state resource could be a violation of the gift clause or the state constitution. It could be violations of funding statutes. So I say there is definitely some pitfalls under the current state. But with that being said, if the will is to take a legislative action, that's what we required to make it a state park, but we would support whatever action the board asks us to undertake. And again, like you said, it's not that we don't want to partner with BTA. In fact, we love it. We just want to make sure that we're doing that in a legal, legislative
Point of order. Has the Attorney General's office concluded that this action is necessary? Have we foregone all our asset out there, all the goodwill out there? We've got to go back to the legislature for the, what's the basis of that opinion? And are you talking as an attorney?
Chairman and members of the committee. I am not an attorney. This is a plain language reading of the statute. We did work with the Attorney General's office. As far as looking at the statute, we did ask Nancy to do some of the session law research just to make sure this wasn't buried in some line item. Because again, we did want to make sure we did all our due diligence before we put out something this important to folks. So I believe we have exhausted all the research.
What is the basis of their conclusion that we have given up our interest?
Chairman, board members, I don't know that it's us giving up an interest. When the tripartite agreement was dissolved, there was a lease that was the basis of, quote, this being a state park. I think there was a lot of discussion around what contractual mechanism that relationship would take going forward. Again, what the Attorney General's office pointed out is before we start getting into contractual discussions, there's still an issue up here, which is a property over 160 acres has to be designated a park via the legislature. There's no research that shows the legislature ever did that, so it becomes really just an act of our elected
And in
representatives.
the meantime, until the legislature takes action, we control that property.
Chairman, board members, I think that's the discussion we have is BTA would control the property.
No, right now, we literally control that property. We have the key to the old house. We have the keys to the wells.
So Chairman, board members, we still control the picket post house. That's still a state asset. We have those
Please
keys.
keep that coming.
Absolutely, yep. So
Just
that
the manner in which you present the situation would imply that we no longer control that asset to the east.
So I would refer the board back to the map. What you can see up here in blue is
Right.
the actual state park owned parcel. That's the picket post house.
Right.
Boyce Thompson Arboretum is the other 402 acres represented there. That remains in private control of BTA, and the state will remain in full
What
control.
about the water rights that feed the garden itself?
The wells that feed the garden itself are, well, we have a number of wells, but there's a separate well at the Picket Post House property that takes care of that particular property. So there are actually four or
Does it
five
go to
wells.
the property immediately to the west, adjacent to the west, some of that water from the Picket Post property?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Is not some of the runoff of the Picket Post property going to the contiguous property where the pond is and so forth?
No, that is fed by two other wells, including a new well that was drilled directly on the Boyce Thompson portion of the property.
Other thoughts or comments? I think just in terms of, and I appreciate both board members and Tim, your research on it, to at least now we know what the playing field is about. And I agree, and thank you very much, Lynn, for not only clarifying it, but also wishing you the best in your position of leadership with BTA.
Thank you.
I think we know that that parcel is jurisdictionally, the authority is state parks, 32.3 acres. That's us. So we're a partner. Whether we want to be or not, we are a partner right there, and we want to be. And I think what this helps to do is sort of clear the air. We know who the partners aren't anymore, particularly U of A, on this. And so now to your point, board members, is that what does that future look like? But we know that there's got to be a legislative mandate at some point in time that would expand the responsibility of this board and this agency to strengthen it, to make it more, to create more of a management relationship for the rest of the property. And that's something that our board can certainly talk to legislative members about and on that side of it. So I don't want anyone to think this is doom and gloom, but at least we know who the players are, where they are, and where it becomes in the priorities for it.
Yes, and any future conversations about that would have to involve the Board of Directors of Boyce Thompson.
Absolutely. So we regard you not only as a stakeholder, but as a close partner. notwithstanding the history and what's been happening in the last few years. Very optimistic about the current leadership team and their communication process with you, and we want that to go. So don't be a stranger. I mean, literally.
No, well, we wanted to take care of the picket post property.
Good.
It's obviously an integral part of the history of the property. It's an important historical building, and we have been, obviously, we're surrounding it, so we're paying attention to what's going on there. We've been taking care of the plants that are there and, you know, making sure that the building is safe. And so I'm hoping that we can work out a partnership. In the meantime, whatever may happen in the future, for that piece.
All right, okay, thank you. Bob?
Thank
Mr.
you.
Chairman, and just to tag on to what Lynn said is, you know, what I'm hearing is you want us to continue to work with Boyce Thompson Arboretum. What is the future going to look like? And is it, I mean, Boyce Thompson would have to cede that property to the state for us then to go seek legislative approval. But short of that, that there could be MOUs, there could be cooperative agreements, or some other mechanism that we can enter into with your full blessing, I think, with your interest in this, that we can come back to you with what does that future look like. Lynn can talk to her board, I'll talk to my board, and then we'll hopefully come to some agreement about what does that look like. And so we won't just look for a legislative fix, but I think we can go through some mechanism that the AG's office says is proper for what does the future cooperation and management of both properties looks like in the future. And we'll continue on that discussion. I think this starts a new chapter, a beginning of that discussion, and not an end necessarily to one. But I fully intend to keep you engaged in that process, and that you're seeing that agreement and you all agreeing to whatever it is that we can come up with and working with Lynn.
Well, and thank you, Bob. I really appreciate that. And to echo what Board Member Sean Orm had mentioned, this is all about stewardship, and it is certainly a strong element within our own mission. So none of us at all want this to be compromised, and certainly we have every right to be able to make sure that that house is in good working order, and it's safe, and it's a good tourism attraction, and all of the above. So unless there are any other thoughts or comments, again, don't be a stranger. We're going to continue with a dialogue, and we hope to have further discussions on this for further action.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you. Thank you, Tim, also for the report. Appreciate it. All right, agenda item D3, Adamsville Emergency and Mitigation Grant. Matt, I think you're going to be presenting this as an informational item.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. We are presenting today an informational piece related to an off-highway vehicle project for Adamsville. On March 31st, 2017, the board gave the Grants and Trails staff the approval to approve submitted applications for emergency and mitigation grants, which are designed to protect resources and fix damages related to storms, weather, vandalism, things of that nature. So we have a state trust land submitted project for the Adamsville ruins, which is part of the Casa Grande ruins outside of Florence. It's a $100,000 project that we're working on with them. It's been approved by SHPO, and the state trust land archaeologist has been briefed as well and reviewed the grant prior to submittal. So this is just us letting you know that we have received an emergency mitigation grant from the State Trust Land Department. We are working with them to protect this resource. We have a map highlighting they're going to be putting in fencing to mitigate the damages that are taking place on the ruins. We believe there's several members of the local OHV community that have been riding in this area, you know, not knowing or not realizing that it is a cultural site. So the State Trust Land Department is going to be putting up fencing to mitigate access to that. It'll still be accessible to hikers. There'll be pinch points where folks can walk in to view the area. Mickey and I went and did a site visit And you could see, pottery shards and things like that right where people had been riding. So this is really the perfect example of utilizing those funds to prevent damage to a resource.
Excellent.
So that's just a brief on the issue, and I'm happy to answer any questions related to the project.
Any questions, board members? No, thank you for the action. I think that's going to be extremely critical. And for many of us who didn't know Adamsville existed, this is really good. This is old Arizona. I love that. That's just really great. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Matt. Next item is Mickey. You're going to do the Grants and Trails section update.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, good morning. I'm Mickey Rogers. I'm the Chief of Grants and Trails, and I have 3 updates related to our trails. On Tuesday, November 26th, Arizona State Parks and Trails hosted our first Veterans OHV ride at the Boulders OHV area off of Carefree Highway. It was the first one that we've ever done, so we didn't know what to expect. The event was a huge success, and Matt, who did most of the organizing, is going to talk more about this event and show a video.
Very good.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, I'm Matt Everhart, State OHV Coordinator. We partnered with Royal Oaks Retirement Community in Sun City and basically wanted to provide a veteran's opportunity to say thank you and provide them with a fun experience that they might not have had before. So we partnered with a bunch of folks. We had bagels donated from Einstein Bagels, so they had breakfast, coffee, and bagels. They got to kind of walk around the OHV area that was actually funded with OHV money. So they got to see some of the support facilities and kind of what a day in the life of the off-highway vehicle community looks like. We had our large trailer set up. We had tons of tables and chairs and shade. We rented a charter bus, so I met them at the retirement community and rode with them to the staging area, letting them know what to expect. I talked about parks, I talked about our OHV program, talked about grants and trails, and they were super excited. We ended up arriving, like I said, they did breakfast, and then we broke them into several groups and took them out on a ride. We had about 45 veterans and their spouses come out, and it was an extremely rewarding experience. We had a large portion of our veterans that work here in the office come out and serve lunch and spend time with us and talk to the other veterans. We had several ambassadors come and donate their vehicles. So all around, just a great day. We had food donated from Sam's Club. We had one of our off-highway vehicle advisory club members. He provided lunch. We had helmets donated from a local organization. So it was just all around a great partnership. And our videographer, Carlos, put together a video that we'd like to share with you about the day.
Great.
For a big charter bus to get the veterans to and from the riding area. We partnered with Connected Horizons for the food. Arizona Outdoor Fun, they're going to be providing helmets for everybody. And then we've also partnered with Trophy Light Industries as well as our OHV ambassadors to bring their personal vehicles and provide basically seats for veterans to helmet up and hop in and go for a ride. So we've had a lot of folks come to the table making this a success.
The ride that we're going to take you guys on is about a 10-mile loop. You can get an idea of what all the different terrain looks like out here.
We're taking them to the Boulders off-highway vehicle area. I think they'll really enjoy it. It's got enough variety of the desert landscape to be able to showcase what a typical riding experience in the desert would be like.
We had a wonderful day out here. I highly recommend that you do a Jeep ride at least once in your life to check off of your bucket list.
This has really been a tremendous experience, and it was just really a surprise. Just because we're old, it doesn't mean that we don't like new experiences.
Marvelous to be out. Those of us who live in the Life Care Center don't get out as much as we used to. This was a real treat.
Our main goal in hosting this event for the veterans is just for them to maybe experience something they've never done or seen before, just to come out, have fun, and feel appreciated.
That's something that I'll remember for the rest of my life.
We had a wonderful day out here.
We are going to provide an off-highway vehicle riding opportunity for about 45 of their veterans and their spouses to come out and go for a ride, and we're going to serve them lunch, and it's going to be a great day.
Hey, how's it going? There's also right that way.
We partnered with Royal Oaks Retirement Community in Sun City. One of their partners is Aeroline Charters for a big charter bus. So yeah, like you guys, they had ear-to-ear smiles the whole day, so it was a great opportunity. We've already started talking with our different partners for this year's Veterans Ride. We'd like to make it bigger. We'd like to do a catered lunch. So, and again, the offer's open. If you'd ever like to come ride with us, we have rides now through June on Saturdays, so with our Show Me Ride programs.
Well, that video certainly redefines the image of the typical OHV rider at this time. So anyway, great video.
Thank you.
So just to piggyback on that, one of the gentlemen that was talking was 92 years old. He rode with me, and it was pretty rough, some of the sections we went through. And then we went through a wash for like 3 miles, and we were going 35 miles an hour. So I said, if I'm going too fast, squeeze my arm and I'll certainly slow down. So he was hitting my arm, and he said, can you go faster? So they had a great time.
That's great. How did the veterans learn about this? What method did you use to try to get people to come in, recruit, and sign up for it?
So Matt,
just out of curiosity, I mean, I'm just how they heard about it, because clearly this is something that you'll need to do now annually, I'm sure.
Yeah, so the National Off-Highway Vehicle Conservation Council did a webinar on hosting rides for veterans. A representative from Novak in Iowa went to a large retirement community hospital for veterans, and they did an OHV tour of the property. So it gave them an opportunity to get out and experience that property that they might not have seen before. So in hearing that and being part of that webinar and heavily involved with Novak, we said, well, let's do something for veterans related to the off-highway vehicle community. So my mom's actually the CEO of Royal Oaks Retirement Community, and I said, hey, can we borrow some of your veterans and do a fun thank you for them? So yeah, they got together, they did a Veterans Day event and then had a flyer for it. So they did a big sign up. They got like 50-some registered to attend, so, and then some dropped out. But
sure. Board Member Sean Owen.
Thank you. So it appears to me, based on the video, that Parks has some pretty awesome equipment that we saw on display there. Who else do you take out?
So right now we have what we call Show Me Rides, where we partner with our OHV ambassadors, and we basically introduce the pre-existing OHV community to new areas to ride. So we as the staff will ride with our ambassadors and lead.
What a terrible job.
But no, we've offered rides to other staff here in the office. The board members are more than welcome to join us.
What?
I can get you a list of the rides that we have coming up.
Great.
We're going to Cherry, we're going to Sedona, we're going to Big Lake, Stoneman Lake. So we go across
Cherry
the
is in my neighborhood.
So yeah, board members are more than welcome. We'd love to have you come out.
Yeah, we might all appreciate a list of
That'd
those.
be good.
Yeah, for sure.
And how we would, take it to the next step. How do we let you know, yes, we'd like to participate, or?
A simple email is more than sufficient.
Yes, please get it out to us. That's great.
Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah,
no,
great.
that'd be fine.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nikki?
A second updates on the Google Trekker. In 2019, Parks and Trails, with leadership from 2 of our former interns, took the initiative to contact Google about the possibility of getting their 360 camera to hike all of our state park trails. In just under 8 weeks, a team of 10 staff and interns walked well over 250 miles of trails to photograph all of our trails in our parks. All of the data has been processed, and the trails are now available on a 360 street view. It will allow people to be able to see the views from all of our parks, and will give the opportunity for those that aren't able to see these fantastic views to look from where that look like from their computer. Jeff's going to give a demonstration of what we have now.
This is Oracle. Oh, I see, yeah. That's amazing.
It takes a while to get used to. You can actually take the little man and drop him on top of Picacho, or go to Granite Mountain in area and just drop it there to see what the fatality site looks like, or the overlook of any of our trails. So they're all completed now.
So is the Google link on your website then? So if we went onto it, or how do you first access it?
Mr. Chairman, if you just go to Google Maps and type in the search bar of one of our parks, it'll take you to that park. That little yellow guy in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, you just pick them up and kind of hovering over the trails. The trails are right up blue, and you can just drop them wherever you want.
Well, and to that point, how does the public know?
Exactly, yeah. I was going to follow up with that. I mean, could there be on the website just at least the basic information on how
Right.
you access this on
We certainly
Google
can make
Maps?
sure that's there.
For sure.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, board members, we are actually working on that. On requests from specifically the visitors at Granite Mountain Hot Shop and Waterloo State Park had access to this stuff, so we're putting it together.
Well, and I'm thinking, not speaking for Debbie, of course, but I think particularly in her area with all of their promotional information, because as people come here and they want to know what's the hike, how difficult, any of the areas, this is fantastic
Or
to be
why
able to see
should I
that.
go there?
Right. And those that are friendly, hiker-friendly versus flexible with both off vehicles as well as hiking, I mean, all the above, so that'd be good. Warren?
My question, you probably answered. To what extent does the program distinguish those trails that are limited to hikers?
It's on our website, which trails are limited to hikers and bikers and other uses. So it's on our state park website, which ones of our trails are
So there's a clear definition as to use.
on our maps, yes.
Yes, right.
Yes.
Well, there is in the field too, somewhat. I would assume in the field, you have signs where you're precluded.
Correct. We have signage of allowable uses on our trails.
Thanks.
Good, okay, thank you.
And the third update we have is on the Summit for for Arizona Trails. So a diverse group of organizations, including motorized and non-motorized trail professionals and advocates, will come together for a summit for Arizona Trails on Friday, February 21st, and Saturday, February 22nd in Cottonwood. A statewide gathering like this hasn't happened in the last 12 years. It's an opportunity to network with trail advocates and users to discuss trail issues, needs, best practices, and to promote and also protect Arizona's diverse trails. Several of our park staff will be in attendance, and we encourage many others to join at this summit. For those that need a scholarship, there's scholarships available to attend this summit. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you have on this activity.
Just real curious, is Ascot familiar with this, so that presumably they would be the ones who would really, I would think, want to
Yeah,
participate?
we sent the information to all of Ascot and the OFAG group also.
Okay, what is the cost?
$25.
Oh, okay, all right. So any of us would be,
We could get you a scholarship if you'd like one.
I think I can afford $25.
Mickey, can you resend the information and the
Yes,
registration?
I'll do that today. Yep.
All right, thank you very much, Mickey. Any other items on his update? Hearing none, let's go to item number 5, which is a considered action item regarding the appointment, reappointment for applicants on the Off-Highway Vehicle Advisory Group, and I believe, is this Matt?
It is me.
Good.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, the Off-Highway Vehicle Advisory Group serves in an advisory capacity to you, the State Parks Board, and their overall mission is to advise the board and staff on the planning, development, funding, and maintenance, as well as promoting safe and responsible off-highway vehicle recreation. As of January 1st, 2020, there are 3 vacancies that need to be filled. We had 3 applicants, Ben Altenender, Jeff Chain, and Holly Irwin. Ben would be representing the Sportsman's representative. Jeff Chain is with the National Off-Highway Vehicle Advisory, or Off-Highway Vehicle Conservation Council. And then Holly Irwin would be a casual user. So we're just seeking a motion to approve these members to start their 3-year term.
Their bios were included in our packet of information. Review through there. Are there any questions or comments, or can we have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve Ben Altender, Jeff Chain, and Holly Irwin as the new members of the Off-Highway Vehicle Advisory Group.
Motion's on the floor. Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Let's have a roll call vote on this, just to show that we're following Nancy's protocols here. Yes.
John Sefton,
Yes.
Debbie Johnson,
Yes.
Warren Lewis Jr.,
Yes.
Sean Moore,
Yes?
Eric Walberg,
Yes.
Very good. Motion passes unanimously. And Matt, while you're up there, and because of that video you had with the veterans, maybe it'd be good to talk to the OHV group about having a veteran representation permanently on this advisory group. I think that might give you that area. You've got at least 50 people there that might be considered for that. So
Yeah, and we did have 2 of our OFAG members attend with us
good.
for that ride, so they thought it was great, and they raved about it at our last meeting.
All right,
so.
good. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, item number 6, and I'm sure this is going to be quite a critical conversation with it. Mickey's going to talk about the privately owned land on the Bow Staging Development, and we also have Norm Simpson here, and after staff has their presentation, I will also want Norm to be able to visit, because Norm is the property owner and longtime leader, elected official in this part of the region as well. So, Mickey, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Attached is the due diligence sheet that we've done, completed tasks for the staging area. Since our last meeting, we've had several meetings related to Peace Trail with the counties, communities, and state lands. A comprehensive water savings plan for the staging area has been completed. A complete environmental and cultural survey of the property, including the building, has been completed. A comprehensive master plan for the staging area has been completed. And ADOT has made a turning lane off from Route 72 onto Joshua Lane, which is the road to the proposed staging area. The master plan, like I said, has been completed, and this is a mock-up of the design of the proposed staging area with full build-out. Master plan estimated cost for the full build-out is $15 to $20 million. This includes 3 restroom shower buildings, campsites, cabins, amphitheater, pickleball and shuffleball courts, a walking path, building improvements, irrigation, picnic areas, and related infrastructure. For phase 1 of the project, the estimated cost for the initial build is $8.6 million. This would include campsites, 2 restroom shower buildings, a road system, water and electricity to the area, secured staging area, and the related infrastructure. Staff believes they completed all of the due diligence tasks requested, including the master plan, and I'd be happy any questions you have on this plan.
Okay. Would it be to the board's consensus that we have Norm come up, since he is the property owner, and let him talk, and then we can ask questions? So, Mr. Simpson, if you won't mind coming up and introduce yourself? Welcome.
Mr. Chairman, board members, thank you for this opportunity to talk. First, I am Norm Simpson. I'm the property owner, the acreage involved here. I'd like to thank our support that are here today, many of which has hung with me for the last 12 years on trying to keep the trails open or letter writing from BLM and such. 3 years ago, I put that property up for sale. And at that time, our local Bouse off-road rider organization approached me about leasing part of that land that I was trying to sell. So we initiated discussion on how could we use this property that's right by the Peace Trail and make best use for it. At that time, we started looking at just leasing and what could be done, and it quickly became apparent that it was going to take money, going to take a lot of energy to get everything going. Then, shortly thereafter, nearly 3 years ago, Matt and Mickey started asking about, well, why don't the park just buy the land, take it over, and develop it properly? So this is where we started nearly 3 years ago. This is either my fourth or fifth meeting here attending as this thing has developed. Thanks to both of them for all their efforts they've put into this. Bouse, my term in Bouse was as chamber president, chairman of the fire district board, initiator of the taxing district that created the fire district, La Paz Regional Hospital director, economic development board initiator. So I have a lot of deep caring for the Bouse area. Since then, I've moved on to Quartzsite. I'm now the mayor in Quartzsite, another area that we're developing access to the Peace Trail. Mm-hmm. And I took this off the market 3 years ago for approval by this board for the purchase. It's been a long time. Matt had to twist my arm to get me to speak. I was afraid my frustration would make this not a good situation. So,
yeah, we're glad you're here.
Anyway, we're here today. This is a project that would help not only Bouse, but La Paz County, Quartzsite. We're all contiguous. All of our planning has turned from each little town or burg doing their own thing to thinking globally. And this is a project that would match that global, do good for not only Bouse, but Quartzsite, Parker, the whole La Paz area. So thank you for the opportunity to speak. Can I answer any questions for you?
Generally appreciate that, Norm. Thank you very much. So questions, comments from the board and staff as well.
Thank you, sir.
Thoughts? I mean, the way that the report has been submitted, I think strategically, is for the board to provide some kind of direction to staff on this. As Mr. Simpson, I guess Mayor Simpson has expressed, it's been 3 years. There is the due diligence that has been accomplished in terms of all of the regulatory inspections and assessments and evaluations for that. So there has been initial investment. We have an idea now of how the phase one cost at least would be in excess of $8 million on that, which I presume is unfunded at this point, correct, Bob? Right. So if board members would care to join in to be able to say where we are and what's the future for this. So board member Orm Lewis.
You're not surprised that I have a question.
Not at all.
And thank you for entertaining it. It has an environmental impact statement and initiated and completed, and what is the results? Second question is, where is this additional property in relationship to the school?
So environmental assessment has been done of the whole property. They didn't find any endangered species or endangered plant in the area. They do request that if we go forward with the development, that we contact the Army Corps of Engineers to make sure if we need a Corps permit, a 404 permit or not related to the wash. So that's one of the things. And there's one small cultural site that certainly would be avoided if we were to go forward with the development, but that's not close to where the proposed development is. And the school, your question related to the school, so Jeff is going to, there's a map that Jeff is showing. So the OHV, you can see where the entrance to the park is. So the OHVs would be going away from the school and not by the schools. The trail is on the other side, so the impact to the school should be minimal related to OHV use.
But they have yet to make their position known formally.
The school has, Matt and I attended a school board meeting, and they are fully supportive of the park, and they provided us with a lot of support for the park, for the staging area.
Thank you.
Just to follow up to Orm's question on the 404 permit, would there be required mitigation on that wash that is unknown at this point as far as cost, or is that inherited somewhere in the Phase 1 development?
It's inherited in the Phase 1 development. It's related to the drainage plan and see how much impact it would have on the wash and if you would need a permit or not. But we hope to avoid the wash altogether.
Okay, all right. Other thoughts, Board Member Shaw?
Mr. Chair, do you want to?
Sure, go ahead. Yes, Terry, go ahead.
I would just like to give kudos to staff for the extensive amount of study work that's been completed on this site, and the water usage information that was provided to all of us, all the documents that I've read through. It's an excellent start to, in my opinion, a very worthy project for state parks in that area of the state.
Okay, thank you, Terry. Board Member Sean Orm?
Thank you. I agree with Terry. There's been a tremendous amount of work done. That's very evident. I appreciated the timeline receiving that. It was interesting to me to note that the concept for this park first came before this board in 2016. So there's been significant consideration. My concern continues to be related to water, and I know that you have many, well, two that I saw, but I'm sure there are more, expert opinions regarding water in this area. I'd kind of like to know what our backup plan is should we run out of water in that area. I know you are probably aware of the Saudi Arabian hay farm that is 30 miles away, and that farm is thousands of acres of land that is in hay production that's all shipped to Saudi Arabia, and they have 15 wells capable of pumping 1.5 billion gallons of water each. And we know that the groundwater table is dropping in that area. And I think the study that is reflected in our materials indicating, that the water table had only dropped, I think it was 2 feet maybe since 1966, I want to say. That study came out of ADWR. I just think it's possible that groundwater level is dropping precipitously. Do we have a backup plan for if we run out of water in that area? It's so arid.
Mr. Chair, Member Orm, what we were told is the Baus water is on a different table than the aquifer, than the hay fields that the Saudi Arabians you were talking about. That's what we were told.
Good to know.
And they said that we could sustain 11,000 gallons a day to not have an impact on that. And the plan that they have presented at full capacity is 7,700 gallons a minute. We certainly would monitor levels of the aquifer, levels of the well, and make water savings plans if we had to do that.
Good question. Thank you.
Okay.
Other thoughts, comments? Bob, please.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, just a couple things that we know are issues that are still out there. Commissioner Atkins has repeatedly expressed concerns of what this area is going to do for the adjacent state trust lands. I think she's been vocal at every meeting since. Yes. That's, I think, an issue that we've got to dive in a little deeper with her on before I think we come with a recommendation to you. The other is that the build out of this property and the approval or not of the board is what we're saying is that we're going to be committing a significant amount per the master plan, if that's what you approve, a significant amount of OHV funds to the development and operation of this property in perpetuity. So that, I think we've got somewhere around 300,000 to 400,000, I guess, is operating annually. So there's that as well. I think it's allowable, it's an eligible fund to use. We'd essentially be, in my mind, we would be cutting off external grants to external partners, land or management partners, to fund this. And it would take a long time, like Mickey said, somewhere $15 to $20 million. So we'd be committing that to that master plan. The other is we have this is outside the property. I think staff has done an excellent job. I think the mayor's been more than patient in this process, but we also have external factors downtown. There's a perception issue of why should parks take more land on when they can't manage what they've got, and it's a perception
Downtown,
issue.
you mean?
The legislature.
State capital, right.
This would have to go to the Joint Committee on Capital Review for approval. Right now, I think instead of asking you to decide today, if you would give us the time between now and February to do some more diligence on that. Okay. We don't want to take something to JCCR and have it go down in flames. I think if we can talk to some members, let them know that, just like I mentioned to you, is we have state land issues, we have budget commitments that we are prepared to make. They need to be able to buy off on that. Okay. And I think for us, that would just be making sure that we're not setting the board or the agency up for something that could be punitive down the road or be basically a negative vote in the JCCR about this. I think those are at least three of the issues that we should be able to come back to you with a better description of what would it take if you said yes, and what would happen if you said no. Okay. And that we can at least see what that future is going to be and do our diligence on that side of it.
Thank you. Sean?
Thank you. One more thing I'd like to say in support of this project would be, despite my water concerns, would be that the development of something at this scale, it would actually be my hope that it would take pressure off of the rest of the state of Arizona that is overrun with these vehicles. And so by creating something of this size, perhaps it would lessen the impact elsewhere that I think the state is suffering from.
Okay. Mickey,
Mr. Chair?
Oh, yes, Terry, go ahead.
I have a question. Thank you for your comments, Executive Director. I concur with you on that. But my biggest question is, why do we need this additional acreage that is being presented right now to purchase this privately owned land? Why do we need that?
That was approved quite a while ago. I think one of the thoughts were to acquire that property so it wouldn't be developed abutting the property, to preserve the whole area. I think that was the reasoning that was given.
And to take advantage of the fact that the property was on the marketplace at that point in time, and that it would be part of that, right?
Correct.
Terry, does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
All right. Just a kind of a point of order. You had mentioned, Bob, the stream of $300,000+ on the OHV funds that would likely have to be dedicated towards this cost. Has the OHV Advisory Group formally taken up the fact that these funds would be directed for this versus other options in their area where they've either voiced their opinion one way or the other to say yay or nay?
What OFAG suggested that any revenue from the park go back into the park or the OHV fund itself. So if there's revenue in excess of the expenses would be paid by the revenue, but the way that state parks has their revenue set up now, it's not a possibility. It goes into a SPRF account.
Okay. And I think in terms of your suggested sort of 30-day further examination, that might be something that we would want to make sure is on the table so that the recognized stakeholders, not only these fabulous people that have been patiently on this process for the period of time, but then also any of the other groups to be able to say, what if the board does take a formal action on this one way or the other?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, that's correct. And you know, I know the OFAG has been supportive of the project. With the funding requirement, we just legislatively, statutorily, we cannot do. Those OHV funds are one way, and that's it. Any revenue generated would go to SPRF, which would be great for our state park recreation fund, but we can't solely dedicate it to the management of that property. Gotcha. But then the other folks that are not necessarily on-off ag that I've talked to in the OHV community, I said, are you aware that we're not using our state park revenue fund to manage this? This is OHV. And that we get a percentage for operation that we do, and the rest is for grants, that you understand that our granting capacity will go down until we stand this property up. And I got some looks like I didn't realize. And to me, that was, all right, maybe people didn't think it through all the way, and I'm sure our folks explained it, but I think I don't want us to get into the situation of let's go on the property and then all of a sudden there is no grant funding available. We're really the only game in town when it comes to OHV funding, other than what Game and Fish provides, but it's still small, and there are certainly some needs out there.
Bob, what's the timeline to get a recommendation to the governor's office in terms of this as a budget time? When would you actually formally bring this for their review, if we were to approve it?
Well, it'd be immediate. Okay. Then what we would do is schedule a meeting with the governor's office, but also we'd have to get on the Joint Committee on Capital Review, which I think is just about monthly.
Okay.
So once that's approval, and the reason I think you all as a body gave us direction to go forward.
Right.
You are the body that will approve this or deny this, and so we want to make sure that we're following that protocol.
So just to bring this to a consensus, sounds like based on the report that another 30 days to do some due diligence in terms of the impacts of this, bring back a formal recommendation for our consideration at that particular time. Is that basically everyone's understanding then? So that you understand we're not trying to just drag it out further, but that there is actually some formal reporting information we'd like to see? Okay. Go ahead, Orm.
Well, I hesitate to raise the question, but I think it's an obligation for staff to bring to our attention, are there key alternative areas or parks which really need the money for health and safety and expansion, which would generate more net revenue to this body? Though at some point you have to look at something straightforward, is it up or down, but at the same time, there have to be wings on what we're looking at. Are we really missing somebody that, if we could come forward with a project that's going to cost $3 million, look what it's going to do for us. So I don't want to get caught in that conundrum.
Okay, I would agree. All right. So there's no formal action today, but the idea is, and particularly, Bob, I respect your acknowledgement of the State Land Commissioner's ongoing concerns with this, so that Lisa has an opportunity to also realize that we're on this tight timeline. And to the mayor and to his team here that's there, thank you for your patience. Thank you for your indulgence with this. My hope is that over this period of time. Don't lose faith. We have to really take a look at this thing and then come to a decision, knowing full well that probably the value of that property 3 years ago and the value today are probably two different numbers at this point based on that appraisal, I would be willing to guess. So anyway, thank you very much, Mickey. Thank you,
Mr.
Matt.
Chair.
And thank you, Mayor and friends. Okay, I know we're at somewhat of a timeline to make sure, and as long as you're all here, if you don't mind, because we have just another action item that I would like to take into consideration, and then we can go to Picacho Peak and then look at the board meeting schedule. So Debbie, before you run off, what I would like to do with your consensus is to skip to the election of the 2020 board chairman and vice chairman issue, because that does require formal voting on that. Is head nodding? Yes, that's okay? Sure. Thank you. So with the election of the 2020 board chairman and vice chairman, the idea here is to have nominations on the floor, first of all, for the position of chairman. Is there anyone who would like to nominate?
Mr. Chair?
Yes,
Mr.
Terry.
Chair, Terry Palmer here. I would like to nominate you, Mr. Dale Larson, if you would be willing to serve again as chair.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any other nominations?
Second.
There's second. We don't need a second, but we'll accept the second to it. Are there other nominations for the position of chair? Hearing none. Roll call.
So we need a motion.
Right. So is there a motion to nominate yours truly as the chair for the 2020 season?
I make that motion.
Motion.
And just to add, to nominate to elect, or just to get that
Right,
worded
because we
right.
would have to elect, right.
I
Nominate to
nominate
elect.
to elect Dale Larson to continue as chair and John to continue as vice chair.
Separate,
Separate?
right? Or does?
They have to be
Yeah,
separate
you have to
I
nominate.
I think we'll,
It might be cleaner.
Okay.
But
I will
Nope.
second the nomination to vote for Dale Larson.
it's been moved and seconded. Any comments, questions? Thank you. I
move to close the nominations.
thank you, Arm.
Thanks a lot.
I haven't talked to my wife about, no, it's been moved and seconded, so let's have a roll call vote for the position of chairman with yours truly as being the sole nominee. Yes.
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 Motion passes unanimously. Is there a nomination for the position of vice chairman?
Mr. Chair, I would make a nomination of John Stepson if he is willing to again step the position of vice chair.
I second that motion.
It's been John Septon to be nominated. Are there any other nominations for the position of vice chair? Hearing none, the motion is to approve for the nomination and election of John Septon as the vice chairman. Roll call vote. Yes?
Sure.
Yes.
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 Motion passes unanimously. Thank you all very much for your support on that.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. All right. Thank you. And Debbie, I know you have to leave, and I know Sean is getting towards
No,
it,
I'm
but.
fine.
Okay. So we have a highlight every meeting, and I'm really anxious to invite Carolyn Grahn-Miller, park manager for Picacho Peak, that wondrous Civil War site that oftentimes gets celebrated in Arizona. Please, first of all, welcome. Thank you. You look great in your uniform. And tell us a little bit about Picacho.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me today. I want to ask you a question first. Do you remember where you were April 1st, 1997? Probably not, and that's okay. Now, I do remember where I was. I was actually on a road trip from California to Texas, driven all day. It was after dark. I needed a road break, so I pulled into this little turnoff off the freeway. Turned out to be not the smartest decision, very dark. very ominous looking, a bunch of cars, a bunch of people. Looked like a pot party, honestly. But I got out and everybody was chattering, excitement, pointing at the sky and telling me, look at there, there's the comet, Hale-Bopp. You can see it in the sky, it's right there. You don't even need a telescope. And sure enough, I saw it, and the magnificent outline of Picacho Peak was right in front of it.
Oh, wow.
And
Very cool.
I was basically mesmerized from that day. So you can say that night was my first visit to Picacho Peak, even though I had no idea that's what it was at the time. But in 2004, a job came open as a ranger there, and I took it, and I've been there ever since.
Well, congratulations. That's great.
So of course, during the day, you've probably all been by, you know, the shape just stands out. You can't help but notice it. Has served as a landmark for probably thousands of years for all sorts of different people, expeditions, the military and whatnot. And you already mentioned it. The military had a little engagement there. Two scouting parties, two opposing scouting parties met at the peak. And it resulted in the skirmish of Picacho Pass, 1862.
Wow.
That was part of the reason, I'm sure, that the park came into being, but of course there's also the natural beauty. So the park was established in 1968 and currently consists of about 3,700 acres. The peak itself has actually a pretty interesting geological history that includes volcanism, but it is not a volcanic core. A lot of people think that, just looking at its shape. It is actually a sequence of layers, both volcanic and sedimentary. Layers were deposited, faulted, eroded, so there's more to it than meets the eye. Some of you might remember the little brown shack there up in the corner. That was our visitor center for about the first 40 years of the park's existence. We were upgraded, major upgrade in 2008 with this nice new, bigger visitor center, which is also LEED certified. Now, that being said, most of our facilities are from the early days of the park. They use Ramada here. I mean, it does have charm. Brick, you know, we'll all hide there if the nuclear attack happens. Nothing's being built like this anymore. And these picnic Ramadas and the playground and everything are very popular with families, groups, and all that. Bird watchers and whatnot. We did a major upgrade here in Memorial Loop as well. This is our redesigned Civil War interpretive area. There's a little walking path with interpretive panels, and of course the replica cannon is a big hit, especially with kids, photo opportunity, and whatnot. The park has 85 family campsites currently, plus 5 group overnight areas. And our camping, of course, is very seasonal. We are a major snowbird destination in the wintertime. You come in the summer, it's a ghost town. You do get the occasional, you know, party people, even in tents, but you know, it is a seasonal business. All of our sites have electric hookups, a picnic table, a fire range. Some have these little shade ramadas. And then, of course, we have the nice restroom buildings with showers. They came in, I believe, in 2003, in the early 2000s, 2002 or 2003. Our latest and wonderful upgrade here was last winter. We got 5 new vault toilets in our group areas. 4 of them went to the group areas. 1 went to a trailhead, and they essentially replaced 10 battered and sun-beaten nasty plastic porta-johns that nobody wanted to use. So we've gotten a ton of compliments on how nice it smells in there, and for us it's easy to keep it nice and clean. A lot of people also come to watch wildlife, of course, and while we have a variety, most of the larger mammals, you have to be there almost every day to see something, but we are definitely fortunate. This picture, and then we introduced a little game camera here, and had this little kit fox family come by, and a bunch of other things.
Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah, really, really cute. You never know what you get.
That's so great.
And then, of of course, there was this viral caterpillar movie that you may have seen on social media. Got, what was it, Michelle? 75,000 hits or something.
It was actually.
And I don't think this plays. I think this was just
Really?
a screenshot. Of course, hiking is also one of the main activities at the park. The trails vary in length. There are options for families as well as hardcore hikers. And this little bench here is located at the saddle. So that's less than a mile from the trailhead where you leave your car, but once you're up there, it really feels like a world away. It is 1,000 feet elevation though, so no one said you could get there easy. And of course, people of almost all ages enjoy the cable race that you have to navigate to get to the peak. Plenty of those all throughout. I mean, what can I say? The view from the top is just fantastic.
Is the highway.
So I made this little graphic here to show you a little bit where we stand in visitation and revenue. As you can see, blue is the camping visitation, green is the things, and you can see camping has pretty much increased steadily, as has the day use, but there are two little spikes, fiscal year 15 and 19, and those are totally related to flowers. It is what it is. Flowers happen. Everybody wants to visit. Flowers don't happen. Oh, they'll just come around then. So, and of course, the revenue went right along with it. I mean, we talked 700,000
That's fabulous.
years, so that
This year should be good too. Yeah. Oh, rains flowers, yeah.
And then I did a little comparison. This is fiscal year 18 on the left, 19 on the right. And while most of the months really kind of track each other, you can totally see March 2018, we made 75,000. March, when it was not our year, March 2019, we made over 200,000.
Wow.
So that, it's not unusual. It's basically keeps the family home.
Oh, it's Santa.
You've all seen tons of pictures, I'm sure, with the peak, with glorious blue skies, sunshine, and whatnot. So I'd like not to show you any of those, and instead show you what it also can look like there. Fog, we have clouds hiding the peak. I don't know if you saw the latest posting on Facebook. We lost the peak. My assistant manager put that out there. Please tell us where it went if you find it. So it's gorgeous. I mean, we had these little frozen dewdrops all over. I mean, it can be very, very wet. We even had a dusting of snow in February, and you can see the flowers were already out. So luckily they survived. And of course it can get downright ugly. This is the dust storms that everybody fears. The peak is basically invisible. And this is probably also the only time of the year that we have running water is after a major monsoon. Let's see. I made this little chart here. This is the closest thing to a crystal ball that we have, really. I started doing this in 2005. Each column is a flower season, but what we mean by that is September through March. We feel that that is where the moisture has to happen in order for us to get flowers. So on the very far left, there's an average season. You can see that column isn't very tall. It's less than 6 inches in those 6 months that we normally get. And then the next 20-some years, 1994, is on the left. I'm not big enough to see that yet. And then, of course, all the way to current. And these bigger columns totally coincide with flower season. So you might remember 1998 was a spectacular season at the park. 2005 was a spectacular season. Then it sort of petered off a little bit. 2010 wasn't much. 2015 had a lot of rainfall, but it really didn't turn out to be spectacular. And then, of course, last year, as you can see, the bar isn't even all that tall, but it was pandemonium. And this year, the last column is totally unexpected. We don't know what to expect. We've never had this much rain in November and December, so we don't know, is this already enough for flower season if we don't get any more? or is this gonna be just blow everything totally out of the water if we have this plus more? So we're sort of bracing for another flower season, but it would be very unusual to have back-to-back flower seasons too. So, of course, this is what everybody wants to see, fields of Mexican gold poppies. Those are not the only ones, but we have, we have lots of other wildflowers, but that is the draw. That's what the news media, social media, word of mouth, what have you, everybody shows the yellow flowers. And this is what happens. Traffic jams everywhere. If you haven't been to the park at this point, you're about a quarter mile from the entrance station to the left. And right on the right, where that white car is and the car behind it, those are the cars that are coming off the freeway exit ramp. And in this picture, it was stacked up all the way into the driving lanes on the freeway. So we actually had to close the park for a couple hours because we had no more parking. It was just not safe to let people stack up on the freeway, so we had to reroute everybody. So flower season visitation is a monster. But in the end, what they say about being a park ranger is true. We do get paid in sunsets.
That's great.
And X marks the spot. Come by and visit us next time you drive by and see the peak from 30 miles away. And even if you just need a restroom break, we're welcome to have you. So thank you so much for having me today, and thank you for all you do for parks.
You can take a great deal of pride in what you have brought to our attention, because it is sensational for those of us who have hiked up to the top. Well, that was many years ago. Anyway.
Carolyn, thank you too, and to what Orm said, absolutely. When you came in 1997, on that infamous day, did you stop at the Dairy Queen across the way? I mean, that's got to be the next retail establishment. I can't tell you how many times our family has the Dairy Queen, and To the Mountain, and then like Orm, it was several years ago. That is not an easy hike. I mean, that's a tough one, but beautiful job. You're delightful. Thank you so very, very much for doing this, and good luck this year. Hopefully there will be a lot of flowers. I'd like to see the Extension Division of U of A kind of do some scientific research on that to help you with your crystal ball to determine from year to year, based on rainfall, what the flower potential is and everything. I think that'd be great. Thank you, Carolyn. Appreciate it. All right, now the item number 8, and thank you, staff, thank you, Bob, Michelle, everybody for putting, here is pretty much the schedule for the year, and we'd like to get this out to our stakeholders, for those that would like to come and participate or have items with our agenda. I just want it to be there. I guess we can approve it, at least in principle, or at least consensus, because there may be changes as the season goes on with budget issues and other kinds of things. So I don't think I need a formal motion, but I want it to be known, unless anyone objects, that this is the presumed schedule for the year, so that we can get that word out to everybody.
And Mr. Chairman, one thing to keep in mind is we're still looking at least 3 of these meetings out of the Phoenix area.
Yes.
We continue to look at, those areas around the state, north, south, east, or west. But so we'll probably pick at least 3 of those. So the locations may change, but we'll work with you and the vice chair on suitable locations.
Right. Thank you very much for that. All right. Hearing none on future agenda items, board members, are there any identified items you would wish to be considered? We know that BTA will be coming back to us. We know that the BOUS issue will be coming back to us. Anything else off the top of anyone's head that they would like to see? John?
Talked about the budget discussions and things, so that'll be appropriate.
Okay. All right. Very good. Current events. Any of you have done some journeys out there that you would like to share with us that have taken place over the holidays or any time?
Carolyn, still here? I just want to confess to being part of the pandemonium. I was part of that 700,000 this last March,
And it was just spectacular. So kudos to your entire team. Even though you're probably exhausted from entertaining the public, nobody ever appears exhausted. And you're all delightful every time I go, which is every spring, flowers or no flowers. It's just a spectacular spot. So I also want to thank you for your presentation. It was wonderful. Thanks. You bet.
Pass it along. I do have to give my team a big compliment. I mean, they never lost their cool.
Yeah, they're great.
How long the lines were, and I had to take several mental health breaks at the backside of the building, and they were just chugging along. Here's your tag. Have a great day.
Yeah, right. That's been my experience.
Well, just think back in
Mr. Chair?
1860. Yes, Terry, go ahead.
I stopped in Wickenburg at the Kirkes Trailhead that they took 10 years to complete on an Arizona State Parks grant program, and it's very nice, very sweet and clean and lovely.
Oh, very good. Thank you, Terry. Appreciate that. Any other?
Mr. Chair, I did have the chance to make it to the West Coast and to hit all of the parks that are along the river there. Stayed a couple of nights with Dan Roddy up at Lake Havasu City, and what an amazing, amazing group of staff and true gems all along there. It is, I mean, it's like, I told Dan, I said, every time I go to a state parks, I have a new favorite. and it's not to discount the ones that I were at before, but it really starts with the staff and the way that they troubleshoot, deal with issues, reflect and build, and all the things that are going on. But the assets that we have, and I think the due diligence that we're putting into things like BOUS and some of the others, and the resource management issues that you as staff and we as a board are dealing with are absolutely critical. Arizona is amazing.
Very good. Thank you for that. Really appreciate it. Any other comments on current events? At this time, call to the public. I can recognize anyone who would wish to address the board on any future items. Seeing none, you all, and again, thank you. Thank you very much, BOUS Group, for coming, and did Mayor kick off? Okay. We do not have an executive session.
No, I'm not requesting at this time.
Very good. And good luck with future executive sessions, Nancy, on that. Future meeting dates, maybe Lake Havasu would be one of those ideal locations for us to go to, so thank you. All right, nothing else, I call this meeting, oh, sorry, I'm sorry.
Just one thing, sorry.
Yes.
I would again like to request that the board receive the agenda and a full packet in advance of the meetings. Particularly, I mean, every time. Today I found myself thinking of Terry, who's on the phone and unable to see, the full packet that we are seeing. And because it just really, that's such important information, and everyone really, those that are participating on the phone would so greatly benefit by having that information available to them, and all of us would be advantaged to have it in advance.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate that, Bob. Thank you. Yep. All right, with that in mind, I call this meeting adjourned.
Congratulations to you both.